Everything good up to here? I will show you a third project, and then I'm going to show you a small video of a fourth project, which was a museum. But now, before that, I'm going to show you a very fresh project. It's so fresh that it's not finished yet. It's going to be finished in 5 years' time. What does it consist in? I'm sure that you've understood that I've been working with architects for many years. It interests me very much to work on graphic interventions that are in the buildings, and that the people are confronted with their body and not only with their minds. But when we do graphics in architecture or public spaces, we can fall into mistakes because there's consumption of there's consumption of the bodies, the consumption of aesthetic ways. What is extremely particular is that I'm intervening on the facade of a building which is huge. We are in Pantin, which is right outskirts of Paris. We are in a neighborhood which is an outskirt neighborhood, which is especially has council houses, so it's what we call a strong neighborhood. And in this building that was built in 1957, 1958, there are 2,000 people living in here. And you can see there's a park, there's a small nursery, and it was built by Émile Ayot. You can see that there's simply the beginning of the building that is open, and then the next time to find an opening, you have to go all the way there, because then on the other side you can only cross over with a car. So if you have to walk around the building, you have to walk 400 meters around the building. There are small passages on the ground floor, but these passages are controlled by drug dealers, so people don't have easy access. So the park has become private property of these drug dealers that do and control, like metro controllers that ask people, who are you and where are you going? So they check entries to the building and the complex starting from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's their territory. So there's a whole story about the rehabilitation of this building. I'm going to try to be synthetic about it, but the architects that are working on the rehabilitation of this building, because it has totally run down and become terrible, the facades are falling off, and the paint is coming off. It's cold in the winter, it's hot in the summer. So the architects that have won the contest to rehabilitate this building in 2001, we are in 2010. It's 9 years they've been working on this project, and I've only been working on this project for a year now, because I started May last year. So the project of the architects that are going to rehabilitate this is to close these ground floor passages that are taken over by drug dealers, and to cut the sides there, to open 2 openings to avoid the park being closed off. They're going to put some interphones inside so that people can ring basically up. There's works going on in the park that I'll talk to you about later. And I will show you the project and explain what I will try to do. To begin with, what does it look like today? You can see that it's very unfresh, very dirty. We have to do the isolation of the building completely, the insides and the interiors and the facade. The architects asked me to help them to do the facade and to do them in glass ceramic. It's the small tiles that we use in the bathrooms. So the glass, it's glass ceramic. Because the paste of glass is entirely done in glass, whereas this is a piece of ceramic which is vitrified on the surface, just like in the bathrooms and some swimming pools. These are pictures that I took in plain daylight. You can see. This is the famous wall that, so basically where the building stops and interrupts, so there are two sides which are divided, and it has this gable. And thanks to this gable, there are four walls that are going to be cut where there were used to be four apartments. So they're really. You can also see that there's staircases, and that the building, since it's always curving, you can't really look over it. There are 50 staircases throughout. I'll show you directly from this. Three different interventions are going to be done. The exterior facade on this roadside. So it's the facade that's going to allow us to repair the building and rehabilitate it under urban perspectives. And the one that's on the side, which is in relation to the environment of the park. And the gable that act as doors between the park and the urban environment outside the building. So basically, the park is for the people living inside the building complex, whereas the road part is for the visitors and passersby. These are samples of the material that was imposed on me, and there's an element that is very important. The cheapest one is the white one. Then you have the gray and the blue one, which are a bit more expensive. And then you have the yellow that is really expensive, and the red is even more expensive than the yellow. So keep this in mind very well for the follow-up of the project. This is the first opposition that they had, because they asked me to do something that was very calm, not a lot of color, not blue, and I'll explain why if you ask me later on, and not to write anything on the building. So I asked them, why on earth did you choose me if you don't want color and you don't want me to write? And obviously my response was to put color everywhere, because obviously color is life too. I have a bit of a contradictory spirit. So I started putting color everywhere, on the outside and on the inside of the building. And I realized as I was preparing the maquettes that I wanted to feel the continuity in architectural terms, so that it's a round, so by inserting color inside and outside the building, I was able to separate each part of the building from the whole by leaving a continuity. So I was doing small bits of architecture, and what I wanted to do, since I'm working on a rehabilitation project, is to allow people to feel the quality of this building, because this curving and this undulation of the building is quite stunning. And so, talking about it with the architect, I understood that I couldn't really get out of it. But on the other side, by adding color outside and inside with different ways, I didn't really know what colors to use anymore for the gable walls, or the gable walls filling of the inside or of the exteriors. I hope you're understanding what I'm trying to say. This is the second project I presented. In the meanwhile, I went to visit a manufacturer where they produce the small ceramics, and I got information to see what I could do about degradation of color on the same tile. If there are questions, you can ask me, but I had to redesign my whole project because in the beginning project, I had spent 4 times as much money as I had as a budget. So I had to start to be able to show it to manufacturers and asking them if it was possible, feasible, if it was impossible to do. Secondly, I did the surface for each area and which color I was intending to use. So I was going to have red in one area, and I knew I was going to have white in another area, and then I got some yellow and I inserted it on the red. So I had to dose every color in terms of price and trying to come forward in the project in relation to the price. I was able to reduce the cost by 210,000 euro. You see that as I go along on my slides, you can see that the project becomes simpler and simpler. So there's a degrading of color in a vertical way, so no matter where you come from, you can recognize the building. And the volume of the building is obviously enough and sufficient for people to recognize it from the outside. But there are variations of red, so there are entrances with gray, red, and the main entrance that is not symmetric and it's white. At one point, the color of the gable walls becomes in relationship, it goes straightforward in relationship with the interior of the building. My maquettes where you can understand that. It's simpler and a lot more effective to say one thing at a time and to have a surprise effect when on walk-in, and each time a different vision by following the serpentine. What we have in front of when you walk in is always a different color, and it follows the movement of the sun. So from sunrise to sunset. So the warmer colors are warmed by the sun in the morning, and the colder colors as the day goes on.